When a 96-year-old woman had to go into a care facility and was no longer able to live in her cottage, she made the decision to leave it to a homeless person who was always close by. He moved in cheerfully since he was eager to put a roof over his head. But what he discovered inside was incredible. Stephen waited anxiously in front of the house. He found it difficult to accept that he now owned this home. Despite his several visits, this still seemed unfamiliar to him. However, he would quickly discover that the house was not his only surprise. With the help of the key the attorney handed him, he entered. Looking around, everything seemed incredibly familiar once more. It was just how he remembered it. But Stephen immediately noticed something odd that was out of place. On the table was a large luggage. It has his name on it. Slowly opening the luggage with trembling hands, his jaw fell to the floor. "I can't believe she has done this." But some background information is necessary to fully comprehend Stephen's circumstances and what he discovered. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. In a remote area of Alaska, 96-year-old Ellie Barnes lived. She was raised close by and never felt the urge to move away. Peter, her husband of 72 years, and the area were both very dear to her. Ellie appreciated the peacefulness of the countryside, and when the weather permitted, she enjoyed relaxing with Peter on the porch. But shortly, her uncomplicated life was about to be upended. After a brief struggle in the hospital, Peter passed away one day. Ellie was in awe. Despite their advanced stage, she had never given the possibility of Peter dying first any serious thought. He had always been the more healthy of the two. Without him, what was she going to do? Their kids hadn't exactly fallen in love with Alaska the way Ellie and Peter had. They had made the decision to relocate far away and southward to the American continent. When Ellie started school, she ran across Peter, who had recently emigrated to Alaska with his family. The only activities available to two children at the time were playing in their yards or riding bicycles side by side. After getting married, Ellie and Peter had trouble securing consistent employment. All they could afford was a little rancher with a single bedroom and a cramped living space rather than Ellie's ideal house. When Peter died, it appeared as though the house had undergone 1,000,000 repairs. Fortunately, Ellie was able to contact a nearby neighbor for assistance who lived a 10-minute walk away. They promised to see what they could do to keep the house in order because they'd been friendly for years. Many of the physical labor tasks that Ellie needed to fix the house could no longer be performed by her neighbors because they were getting older. They also had to worry for their son Stephen, who had recently come in with them after spending years on the streets. Stephen had not quite felt at home in Ellie's cherished town. Stephen had been looking for work but had been unsuccessful. In such a remote location, there weren't many job prospects, and he could never make enough money to live alone. Stephen's parents couldn't do a lot of the work at Ellie's house, but he was healthy and strong enough to complete it. He began pitching in to assist Ellie in any way he could while he had free time. Ellie attempted to pay him, but Stephen consistently declined. He believed he had a debt to her. After all, they had encountered each other in a difficult situation. Everyone in the little town knew Stephen had been homeless when he first arrived back. They dismissed him and made assumptions about him. He was totally alone, but Ellie and Peter had accepted him right away and had occasionally invited him to dinner, which had helped him recover from his slump. Ellie continued to get treatment from Stephen in any manner he could. He cleaned the house, performed the repairs, and even went grocery shopping for her. Their relationship grew even closer. She persisted in making Stephen dinner and a new scarf for the winter because he wouldn't accept any money. However, not everyone was happy. It upset Stephen's parents to learn that their son was providing free labor to Ellie. He stayed at her place for so long that he ran out of time to fill out employment applications. Finally, Stephen's parents forced him to make a decision between staying at home and aiding Ellie. If he wasn't going to try to support himself, they couldn't keep helping him. Stephen was shocked that his parents weren't more forgiving with Ellie, given that she had always been so polite to everyone. But he also understood. It was now time to choose. Stephen admitted to his parents that he wouldn't leave Ellie behind. He regarded her as his only buddy because they had been friends for months. Stephen was instructed to pack up and depart by his parents. Stephen was at a turning point. He was aware that if he left town, One of the larger cities would offer him more options. That would entail letting Ellie go. He would no longer be around to assist her with errands, but he could still contact her and catch up. Without him, what would she do? Stephen wasn't even concerned about what the future in the city might bring as he packed. He was just concerned with saying goodbye to Ellie. Stephen proceeded to tell Ellie the bad news. The news left her in shock. They had spent so much time together that they had become close. But Stephen believed he had no choice because his parents were in such a financial bind. He had to support himself somehow. He merely lamented the fact that Ellie wouldn't be as integral to it going forward, or so he thought. Ellie made an effort to function without Stephen, but she had grown to depend on him. She was too old to take care of herself in many ways. She persisted with this for around 3 weeks before something transpired that made it abundantly plain to her that this was simply not an option. Ellie tripped over a towel that she dropped on the floor as she was tidying up in the kitchen. Ellie crashed to the ground and broke her hip as a result. While Ellie first attempted to conceal this, the doctor promptly told her family, and this was the last straw for them. They desired for Ellie to relocate to a retirement community nearby. It was time for her to leave the house she had lived in for 60 years. There was only one question remaining now that Ellie was aware that she would be relocating. How did she intend to use the house? Ellie was aware that while she could try to sell the house, it would probably not net her much money. In addition, there was only one person who truly deserved it: Stephen. Ellie made the decision to hire a lawyer to ensure that the home transfer would proceed smoothly. Ellie also wanted the attorney to inform Stephen of everything, since she knew she would be unable to speak to him if she initiated the contact, and she required him to hear everything out loud and clear. Stephen was shocked and a little confused about what to do when he received the call from the attorney. He never imagined Ellie would give him her beloved home, much less abandon it. He returned the call and informed the attorney that he had accepted the offer and was interested in the house. Additionally, he inquired as to whether he would be able to assist him in selling it. The attorney then revealed that the only stipulation was that he would make at least one trip to the house. Stephen was a little surprised and perplexed by this peculiar condition. He demanded an explanation, but the attorney was at a loss for words, or perhaps he simply didn't want to. Stephen chose to accept the offer, but hesitantly. What harm may a single visit cause? The next step for Stephen was to phone Ellie. Naturally, he wanted to express his gratitude to her for giving him the house and inquire about her well-being. But Stephen was unable to reach Ellie. He didn't think to inquire at the moment and simply took it at face value. Could the fact that he had been to the house have a role in this? Stephen immediately visits Ellie's home after getting to the town. He avoids even approaching his parents' home since he doesn't want them to find out he is there. He just hopes they aren't at Ellie's house waiting for him. But when he got there, nobody was there. He is taken aback by the 2 new locks on the door when he uses the keys he obtained from the attorney to enter the residence. At first glance, it appears like the location remains unchanged. But then he notices that the dining room table has a sizable suitcase on it. He approaches the suitcase uncertain if it was left for him, but notices right away that his name was scribbled on it. Stephen recognized the handwriting and knew that Ellie had done this. He instantly realized the suitcase was filled with envelopes when he opened it. Stephen randomly selected one of the envelopes. For getting groceries, it stated. Then she chose a couple more. For fixing the gutter, for cleaning the kitchen, and for walking her. All of these things were things Stephen had done throughout the years for Ellie and Peter. But now comes the finest part. Each packet contained some cash, bills of £10, £20, and even £50 at one time. Stephen opened them all, calculated the money, and came to the conclusion that the total was around $15,000. Stephen chose to make another attempt at calling Ellie while still somewhat in shock. She did answer the phone this time, much to his astonishment. Ellie argued that despite earning everything over the previous 2 years, he had never acknowledged it. So, in order to thank Stephen for all of his generosity and assistance, she did this. This absolutely brought Stephen to tears. His life would be forever altered by this money. He was also incredibly relieved that Ellie was still alive. Stephen would eventually move to Anchorage and rent an apartment there with the money. Now that he had a reasonably stable foundation, Stephen was able to radically change his life. He quite quickly got a job and started moving through the ranks. Soon after, he also met his current partner, and the two are currently living together and preparing to establish a family. With time, his relationship with his parents also grew stronger, and he now visits them almost monthly. And every time he is in town, he passes by Ellie's house to do any necessary repairs. He continues to be the owner of the home and rents it to a local couple who are raising a family there. Before Ellie passed away, Stephen would see her one more time. About 6 months after she had given him the house and the money, he went to see her in the nursing home. He had to thank her in person at least once, even though he might have called her a million times. Thank the person who made a permanent change in his life.